I'm really excited to see it, okay? Because I'm a classic lover above anything else, okay?
What's up, Mad Season here, back with another video for you. Get ready to huff that copium. It's another Classic Plus video. So with the recent 20th anniversary that World of Warcraft had, some people were speculating that it would be that fabled day. The announcement of what many have been requesting for years and years and years, Classic Plus. Unfortunately for them, they forgot that they were Blizzard fans, so I'm here to give you the next best thing. Some random person's idea on what it could be. So, what is Classic Plus? Well,
Right.
It's different depending on who you ask. There's a too many cooks in the kitchen situation going on, and everyone will give you a different answer, so I'll give you one more. But it's vanilla World of Warcraft, but more in the spirit of vanilla.
Right.
No, not that. But
No.
we will talk about Discovery in this video. So this, of course, leads into the next question. What is the spirit of vanilla? Well, everybody has their different definition, but to me, it lies on three main pillars: simplicity, world, and charm. So let's first cover these in more detail, and bearing them in mind, we'll talk about how to achieve and retain them in the modern era. The first is simplicity. It's pretty
Yes.
simple. When World of Warcraft first released, it redefined the genre and brought it into the mainstream with several key revolutions. Perhaps one of the most important being its simplicity and its accessibility compared to most other MMOs at the time. Before its premiere, the genre could only be described as complicated, grindy, and intimidating. The player would be putting in unrefundable stat points on character creation before they even ever set foot in the game. Death came with harsh penalties such as experience and item loss, and gameplay systems required hours of reading the
So for those who don't know, what he's talking about here is that World of Warcraft, compared to the MMOs of its time, it made everything much easier. Therefore, a lot of MMO players jumped into the wagon because in that time, MMOs used to be really grindy and extremely punishing. Okay? What did they do? What did Blizzard do? They did the opposite. They made everything a little bit more accessible, which begs the question: is accessible good or bad? And it just depends on the context, okay?
in-game manual to get a basic understanding on. And while this itself isn't necessarily bad game design, as shown, it was niche at the time. But then came the game that changed it all and brought the persistent online world to anyone who had a decent enough computer. It was forgiving, friendly, and quite easy to pick up. It had depth and a high skill ceiling for those who sought to perfect their gameplay.
Right.
But it also had an equally low floor to where anyone could just pick it up. You level to 60 in a linear and mostly curated campaign of quests, another groundbreaking feature at the time, and then you either PvP, dungeon, raid, or all of the above. And that's really it. And funny enough, this simplicity has only become more and more attractive as time has gone on. Almost as attractive as becoming a professional back-end web developer with their premier learning platform,
What the hell?
Boot.dev.
An ad?
Ever thought about learning code but felt overwhelmed by where to start? Let me introduce you to Boot.dev, the smartest way to learn back-end web development from start to finish in Python and Go. No pressure, it's just your future career hanging in the balance here. Boot.dev keeps you engaged and motivated by turning coding into a gamified experience. You'll earn XP, levels,
Look at
and
that.
achievements
Loot
while
boxes.
completing real projects. Making
Even
it
to
feel more
study
like a game
programming.
than this microtransaction simulator has for the past 10 years. And if you ever get stuck, you can enlist the help of Boots, the AI-powered wizard, or an active Discord community to guide you. It ensures that you learn by actually writing a lot of code and get you a lot of real hands-on practice to get you job ready. Membership comes with a 30-day no questions asked refund policy, so if you hate it, you can bail faster than Blizzard did with their promise to not bring level boosts or WoW tokens to Classic. Told you so, by the way. So whether you're just starting your career or upskilling for remote opportunities, or just looking for a productive way to procrastinate, Boot.dev has you covered. Head on over and use my code Madseasonshow
cool.
to get 25% off your first payment, either monthly or annually, and start your coding journey today. Anyways, as the game changed and evolved, more and more features would be added. Arena, achievements, multiple difficulties for dungeons, raids,
Yep.
borrowed power systems, dailies, weeklies, collections of all sorts, and so much more. An insane breadth of content has been injected into almost every orifice. In just one patch or expansion, none of these features really seem to be game-changing.
The problem is, it's all about new this, new that, new this, new that, new everything, new this. We added this. And then all of a sudden you have a goddamn a plate full of salad on the bottom, and then on the top you have like diarrhea. This clearly didn't work the way that they intended. I mean, I'm not really happy with the way that the game went, the direction of the game as a whole. But hey, that's my opinion.
But after 20 years, it adds up, and it's clear that World of Warcraft today is far different, and like myself, much more bloated, and unlike myself, complex. 20 years of zones, level increases, dungeons, battlegrounds, raids, collections, achievements, class changes, classes added, balance reworks. It's become intimidating just to pick up and play. You feel behind because the game has had so much history and changes at this point, and while many of the players bring decades of knowledge along with them, a new player brings none. Even before it's installed, they feel overwhelmed and outmatched, that they either can't stand up to others directly, or maybe they feel like a burden, something that's reinforced by the toxic-ass community who plays this game. It's the same philosophy as fresh MMO launches. Aside from their actual design, one of the main attractions is just the fact that they're new. Gone is the bloat and the feeling of starting behind or missing out.
I was there.
Everyone is starting off from square one in terms of character progression, and in the case of Classic, while it isn't the first rodeo for many, due to the low floor and simplicity to just jump in, it's not as intimidating. Oh no! How will I ever understand the intricacies of the mage rotation?
One button, bro. One button rotation. So hard.
How am I ever going to learn the complex raid mechanics of this boss?
Oh my god. Oh!
There's complexity and a high skill ceiling to be found for sure, but at its base, it's simple. The entirety of the content is encompassed in
overall, it's like very straightforward. Very straightforward.
To 2 continents, not 50. There are no collections, no achievements, no daily nor weekly timers that keep you on a treadmill against your will. Aside from rating, I guess. There are just 9 classes, and these classes, while again they can have a very high ceiling, at their core they're all pretty simple and easy to understand and play. One of the reasons why I say that vanilla World of Warcraft is appealing to people isn't necessarily for what it has, it's what it doesn't have, and in a way, it attracts players the same way that it did
I would say I agree with that.
So, simplicity, pillar number 1.
By the way, I don't know if you guys have known this, okay? But there used to be a big player base on the PvP aspect of the game, right? That's gone, okay? With how the game is, good luck getting into PvP. Because in vanilla, you get into like these battlegrounds, you have some fun here and there, and it was nothing serious, but everything was like just more simpler, you know? But right now, it's a mess. It is a mess. If you want to get into PvP, might as well just not play the game, okay?
Next up, we have the world. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. The MMO was social media before people knew what social media was.
That's
Although
true.
Multiplayer games, of course.
That's true. Oh my god, I used to play this game so much. That's true, because back in that time, that was my Facebook, right? That was my messenger, right? Like back in those days, MMOs used to be almost the same as like social media, because it connected everybody, right, into this humongous world.
Existed, the thought of being a part of this persistent online world that you could change and live in was intriguing, to say the least. It transcended a video game. It was this world where you could share with others, meet friends, make enemies, an online microcosm to explore, and the actual world of Azeroth is one of Vanilla's most defining characteristics. In modern MMOs, it varies, but generally, when a new expansion is released, it comes with a new zone to explore.
New level.
New quests, new biomes, dungeons, raids. It's exciting to have new areas to uncover in a game that you may have been playing for a very long time. But prior to the release of the Burning Crusade...
Don't you guys feel as if You never catch up. By them making these expansions, doesn't it feel kind of shitty in a way that you know it's going to end, right? And like you won't be able to like enjoy.
All content within the game was held within just 2
Why would I wipe my ass if I'm going to just go to the bathroom again? You know what I'm saying? Kind of deal.
continents, the Eastern Kingdoms in Kalimdor, and Azeroth in this state has since become one of the most iconic game worlds to date, and it's for good reason. The biomes are completely unique. You could be in the lush Elwyn Forest in one moment,
Yep.
and then the open plains of Westfall the next, to the rolling hills of Red Ridge, the dark and spooky Duskwood, straight into the dense jungle of Stranglethorn, and all of it without a single loading screen. And no matter what you're doing, even if you're asleep, there's somebody clearing through the forests of Feraless, or they're grouping up for a Stratholme run, or maybe they're just starting out in Durotar. The world presence and immersion was, and still is, one of its most attractive features, and combined with the fact that there were no flying mounts, the world seemed massive and full of unknowns and possibilities, so it's no wonder why so many fell in love with it. It's become synonymous with vanilla, and the first thing that people think of when you say the word. A lot of it may come from nostalgia, and if you think that's a problem, I would never hire you on my development team, because the simple fact is that nostalgia draws people to games.
Yeah.
That's why you see so many remakes these days, whether that's video games or Hollywood.
Isn't it funny how there's like a bunch of remakes and companies, in order to have the game not die, they have re-released old stuff like Modern Warfare 1, Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops 1, Black Ops 2, and then you go to Fortnite, and they had to re-release the OG version so they could, get players back because of nostalgia, right? Isn't it funny?
There's appeal in rediscovering worlds that we fell in love with a long time ago, and it's a huge draw to vanilla WoW, and it's not even a bad thing. I, for one, happen to enjoy the warm and fuzzy feeling of nostalgia. No one gets criticized for replaying Mario on the NES. No one gets gatekeeped for enjoying a recipe that their mom made when they were a kid. I don't see why nostalgia is seen as this taboo thing within the world of MMORPGs, other than tribalism and short-sightedness. But regardless of all of that, the old world is a huge part of Vanilla's identity, so anything related to Classic Plus would benefit greatly from remaining within it, because it also happens to share something from pillar number 3, and that's charm. Vanilla at times has been described as a game with a lot of charm, and I have only one word to describe it: vendor strike.
Vendor strike.
Over time within the genre, both players and developers have got it into their heads that better balance equals better game design. I always like to use the chess analogy for this, a game that's existed since even before your mom was born. I don't even need to explain how legendary it is. Kind of speaks for itself, and despite how long ago it was released, it's been patched and rebalanced a total of 0 times. Each piece is completely unique. They hold their own strengths and weaknesses. The pawn can only move forward, much like how humanity trudges onward, an unbroken chain of pawns, driven not by purpose, but by the relentless ticking of time, marching endlessly towards a horizon that cares nothing for their steps. The rook is also interesting, as it can move adjacently in 4 directions as far as they want, and the queen was made during the Paleolithic Me Too movement because it's just OP, moving in any direction as much as it wants without regard to who they hurt, because that's just the way life works. And the knight is, forget about it. This motherfucker can jump over people. I mean, what the F? But each piece, although different, have their own truly unique strengths and weaknesses.
Right. It is one of the things that retail is missing as of now, because every class has a stun. Every class has a healing. Every class has a healing reduction. Every class has a slow. Every class has a goddamn gap closer. Every class has a goddamn shield breaker ability. Every class has like massive mobility all around. What could I think? Everything is the same. Everything is the same. Even on the races, right? Like in classic WoW, you have to have into account like the type of race you want to, and then you can pair that with your class, and it makes a big difference. In retail, which by the way, there's many different races, it just doesn't even matter anymore. So it doesn't matter whether you're an orc or a blood elf or like a goddamn gnome. It just doesn't even matter in retail as much as it does in classic, right?
And while compared to each other, they're not balanced at all. When combined in a group, together, they have formed a game that's been played long before you were born.
Yeah, I
and long
did.
after
I'm
you
glad.
die. So now,
I'm glad he
I'd
did,
like to
Papaya.
introduce to you what chess looks like when an MMO developer balances it. The rook can now also move in any direction as
Jesus
far as
Christ.
they want, like the queen, because not enough people were playing them. The pawn can now move in any direction as far as they want, like the queen, because not enough people were playing them. The knight can now move in any direction as far as they want, like the queen, because not enough people were playing them.
Yep.
And in fact, every piece now has the same strengths and weaknesses of the queen, and you can also buy them for $19.99 each in the cash shop. Yeah, isn't that video game awesome? I call it Blizzard chess. Balance is boring, and especially in an MMO, where it's a persistent online world with different...
I feel like balancing is a false god. The mere idea of balancing a game properly is a false god, okay? It never works. Just make it to where it's rock, papers, or scissors. And whoever actually, is good at outputting those three things wins the game.
classes, specs, talent builds, and thousands of items to equip.
I really
to
miss
support
one-shotting
your play
people.
Style. People are under the impression that weaknesses or bad items are synonymous with bad game design. It's not a flaw that warlocks have next to no mobility, or hunters have a dead zone, or rogues are cooldown dependent in PvP. These are weaknesses that they need in order to balance out their many other strengths, and to have good items, you also have to have bad items. And
Right.
it's when developers saw otherwise is when they started to lose their identity. In regards to classes, in vanilla, each class has a role and
6
is
classes.
useful to some degree. Are Fury Warriors OP in PvE? Yeah, but how are they in PvP? They're kind of dog shit.
Yep.
Does it suck that druids don't have a res? Yeah, but who do you want running your flag in Warsong Gulch? The very fact that vanilla has been running for 20 years, private server or otherwise, shows that this supposed terrible class balance isn't as big of an issue that people make it out to be. There's always room for improvement. Nothing's perfect, but it's also important to remember that where there's imbalance, there's also uniqueness and charm. And in
Yo, the quality of this
RPG
video,
genre,
this has been
these two
recorded, like,
characteristics are served well in a game
on
where
World War
people are
I or
trying to
something?
fill a
Jesus
role.
Christ.
You know, kind of like a role-playing game, for instance. But classes aren't everything. Eventually, itemization also suffered. Weapon speeds were normalized. All weapon types were made to be the same. Weapon skill removed. Stats deemed to be
Yeah.
inferior were cut, and so on and so forth until eventually
Just throwing a percentage. Just throwing a percentage. Nothing really matters. Out of these 4 stats, Leech. Why is even Leech in there? And why is even Critical Strike? Just do Mastery and Haste. And take Versatility out. Take Critical Strike out at this point. You know what I'm saying?
you have like 5 stats, and everyone is capable of everything. All items from previous raid tiers are immediately replaced because it's all about eye level now.
Look at
It's
that.
much more balanced, and as a result, it's also incredibly bland.
Yeah.
So I'll say it once again, Vendor Strike. Considering its rarity and where it drops, it's one of the worst weapons in the entire game. No one really seriously uses it, but if you mention it, any classic Andy will know exactly what you're talking about because, like with the rest of the game, it has charm. These perceived imperfections are one of the big reasons why people play it. Even things as small as leaving useless quest items in your bags that you hang on to until level 60 because you can't remember where it's from, but it might be important. Or taxis that make no sense, bad items that no one would use, low-level items that are coveted
Yeah,
at
look
the
at
max level, or racial abilities and passives that have impact.
None of that is a thing anymore in retail, by the way. Like I said, your race has no identity. It doesn't even matter anymore. Like Taurens could be rogues. Okay? Taurens could be rogues.
All of these little inconveniences and imperfections contribute to what people refer to as charm, as it's representative of the early years of the genre, and the reasons why people play a version of the game that's labeled classic to begin with. Inconveniences aren't necessarily bad. Video games at their core are just a big list of inconveniences for you to solve. What really matters is how rewarding they feel to solve.
Here comes the pain, bitch.
Right.
Pop, pop, pop.
They all died. And they killed Ragnarok. Yeah, it's epic clip.
And that's what separates good
Carp.
developers from bad developers. It's not necessarily the obstacles put in place, it's how rewarding they feel when they're overcome. So, the 3 pillars: simplicity, world, and charm. And in regards to Classic Plus, it's what I think would serve well as sort of this guiding star. The Season of Discovery, some have said, is a form of Classic Plus, and I do agree in some senses, but overall I disagree because it breaks all 3 of these pillars in my opinion. And keep in mind here, I'm not saying that any of this is objectively bad. Personally, I stopped playing SOD after the level 50 phase because I realized that for me it just got too far away from these pillars. If you enjoy Discovery, that's fine. This is just me making a case as to why it doesn't really feel like vanilla for me, and I think a lot of others out there. So first, in regards to simplicity, this was lost with the rune system. There are so many runes in the game. These abilities and passives have changed the classes so much, and rotations are way more complex, which again, this isn't a flaw, but it's just not vanilla. I think that they got too far from how the classes felt in vanilla, and this also leaked into a loss of charm as this obsession with balance reared its ugly head in. It was unfair that only Alliance had kings and only Horde had totems, so we make everything available to both factions, and as a result, that Shaman versus Paladin dynamic, which is a pretty large defining factor of vanilla, was lost. Same with the priest racials, which from what I understand are now shared between everyone. The human weapon skill racial. Oh, people are having trouble affording their mounts, buff gold rates. So now no one has to keep up with repairs. So now it's lost that gold struggle, which I think is also another pretty defining feature of Vanilla WoW. As far as the world is concerned, this was absolutely eviscerated with the release of incursions, where players farm and share repeatable quests with each other, and combined with the experience buff, they level at absolutely ludicrous speeds in one little corner of the world, and as a result, the world presence in the game was lost. There's so many inconveniences that were removed for the sake of balance or convenience, and I know why it's all done. It's because they're temporary, so the cadence has to be increased, but that's what I'm saying. This increased hyper-convenience and cadence makes it impossible for it to feel like vanilla.
Yeah, so basically they ended up catering for people to... They just made the game a cheese version of it.
And it's more reminiscent of retail design, bringing us to the actual
everyone
picture
crying
of the video.
around.
The future of Classic Plus can't be seasonal alone, and I think if Blizzard went the same path with Classic WoW as Jagex has gone with old school RuneScape, it would be as successful, if not more so. So if you didn't know, OSRS was released in 2013 to quite a lot of hype, but afterwards, slowly over time, similar to Classic WoW, that big hype burst waned and interest went down because, of course, the big flaw is that there's a finish line. This wasn't unexpected, but when players hit the max and they finished Nexramas and there's no more content to look forward to, they eventually quit, until of course Burning Crusade Classic was released. MMORPGs function on the principle that they never end. As players finish raids and other content, they are fed more, and no matter how good one may be, if there's an end, so too is there for a player's interest. So, if you didn't know, as time went on for OSRS, the players started to lose interest, but then Jagex did something pretty interesting. It wasn't one big major patch that changed the game in sweeping ways, but instead, slowly, over the course of years, week by week, they updated and added more and more content to the game in line with what drew people to it to begin with.
Right, so instead of doing a whole, like a vertical progression system, a horizontal progression system, meaning that keep the game as it is, but just add more stuff to it, you know, without changing the core fundamentals of the game. Simple. I don't understand why they don't get this. It's just a very simple concept to wrap your head around, and somehow they still just don't listen.
They did this with the use of polls to measure if the community agrees that if certain changes are in line with this original design philosophy, and by doing that, it's become insanely popular today. You have the main game, OSRS, And every now and then, they will also launch these leagues similar to seasons from World of Warcraft, where they increase XP rates and have major changes as sort of a testing ground and a way to draw people back with this fresh launch. By completing activities in-game, you get points, which you can then spend on your main character in the main game for various cosmetic rewards. Now, old school RuneScape and World of Warcraft are two very different MMOs in many different ways, but I think if they were to develop vanilla in a similar way to how OSRS has, and having that base game slowly worked on over time, and using seasons as an optional increased cadence that the players are incentivized to experiment with, and by doing so they get rewards for the base game, and using these 3 design pillars as a guide, they could find similar success. It wouldn't be a light switch. It would definitely take time, but the hard part is already done because for those who've been following my Unreleased Secrets series,
there's so many things. There's so many things that Blizzard was going to release on Classic that it would make up for like a humongous expansion. For many, many humongous expansions.
the content is already there, just begging to be finished. I think that the closest you can get to retaining the spirit of vanilla is by making content that the original developers planned. Old Hygel, Karazhan Crypts, the Ashara Crater, maybe an Ashbringer questline. There's so much content left on the cutting room.
There's so many things left on the table that never got touched. And it will be amazing. Like, this will be great. And I just don't get it. Why don't they do it? Because everything is already there. Like, everything is... I'm not a developer, and I really don't understand, like, the intricacies of, like, making games. But for the most part, if something's already there, you know, you don't have to build anything from scratch, you have an advantage, right? You have an advantage of building this thing quite relatively fast. It's going to take less effort because everything is already built.
Floor from 2004. They could add raid tiers past Nextramus, a new battleground here and there, and maybe some moderate class balance changes that aren't completely overboard. I think people would play it. Right now I feel like the developers are just kind of doing their own thing with the seasons, and they're not really taking too much direction from the community. Like, I personally don't know anybody who said, gee, you know what would be cool? A level 30 Gnomragon raid. And again, I'm not saying this is necessarily bad. I actually quite enjoyed SOD for the time that I played it, but I think they've just missed the mark of what vanilla is, because it's impossible to hit it when you have this increased cadence due to their limited availability with nothing to fall back on. And just a small team of developers isn't going to understand a game as much as a community of hundreds of thousands. It's just impossible. Yeah. So they're just kind of doing their own weird hybrid of vanilla and retail, and at least so far, it doesn't seem to have the staying power that I think an OSRS like Classic Plus would have. What if Vanilla WoW was as it is right now, and tomorrow they announced that the level cap is increased to 70, Old Hygel and Oldham are released as 60 to 70 leveling zones.
I like
talents
it.
Are added. The Ashara creators.
Yes. Why they don't add more like talent trees? You know, talent trees. Why don't they add more talent stuff into every talent tree? That's amazing. Also, Mon Hajal is pretty cool, and they haven't done nothing with that.
There's a new battleground. A level 70 Scarlet Monastery raid in Tearsfall Glades is released, along with a hefty attunement chain.
Horizontal progression.
14 bosses, along with a quest line to cleanse Ashbringer for the
Finally, why couldn't they do that? With a nice quest, a nice, well-designed, epic quest, okay? Why couldn't they do that? What?
First person able to do so on the server.
I get angry.
The Survivalist Profession is released. New nodes together and recipes to craft are released, along with long and tough quest chains to obtain them. The Karazhan Crypts open up as a mega dungeon the size of the Blackrock Depths. And this is just the first patch and ideas.
You know what, guys? Actually, I have an idea. All right, Blizzard, you should probably hire Madseason. All right, and I think that he has the potential to turn this thing around.
And content would be continuously pitched to the community to a pass or fail vote. Not everyone gets everything. No doing infinitely repeatable quests in a corner of the world.
Look at that.
For 2 days to reach the max level. Just more vanilla in the spirit of vanilla,
Yes.
people would instantly drown in their own ejaculant. So, I don't know. That's what I envision Classic Plus to be. I think the Season of Discovery has had some interesting stuff going on, but is evidenced by its rather stagnant population. I don't think it's quite hitting the sweet spot for vanilla players, and I think a lot of people have felt that, but maybe didn't necessarily know how to put it into words. So I just wanted to make this video to kind of reach out to any other vanilla fans out there to see if maybe any of this strikes a chord. If it does, feel free to share your thoughts. Like the video if you liked it, because I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Amazing video. This is an amazing video. And I'll have to say that I agree in everything he said, especially when it comes to them adding more vanilla stuff. Just do it, please. Please. All right, boys. Well, that's it, boys. That's it for me for today. All right. The stream is over. Thank you for watching, for standing by, for taking a look at the stream, guys. I'll always appreciate it. With that being said, don't forget to go ahead and hit the sub button, all right? Or the follow, whichever. It don't matter. Make sure to have a nice rest of the day, all right? And remember, there's not about life. It's just a bad day, okay? With that being said, Rodri is out.